The Crethean Empire had ruled the outer spiral arms for 3 centuries. Their reputation built on calculated brutality and overwhelming force. Their warships cast shadows across 100 worlds, and their name was whispered in fear across countless species. They had perfected the art of domination, swift, merciless, and absolute, but they had never encountered humanity. The colony on Epsilon 7 was small, barely noteworthy in the grand scheme of galactic politics. A few thousand humans had settled there, farming the rich soil and building modest lives under alien stars. When the Crethean fleet arrived, the colonists offered no resistance. They knew the stories. They understood what happened to those who fought back. Commander Vexither stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, watching the settlement below through cold, reptilian eyes. The humans had gathered in the central square as ordered, their faces marked with that peculiar expression his species had learned to recognize: hope. They actually believed compliance would save them. Begin the demonstration, Vexither commanded. The orbital bombardment was surgical, precise. 3 buildings reduced to ashen seconds. The message was clear: obedience or annihilation. The Cretheans had performed this ritual on dozens of worlds. Fear was the foundation of empire. But then something went wrong. A single shot, fired by an overeager Crethean ground soldier, struck a human child in the crowd. The girl, no more than 8 years old, collapsed in her mother's arms. Her name was Sarah Chen, though the Cretheans would never know it. To them, she was merely collateral damage, an unfortunate but meaningless casualty. Nancy Parker was 5,000 light-years away when she received the news. She stood in the sterile white corridors of the Human Defense Initiative headquarters, her hands trembling as she watched the footage. Sarah had been her niece. "I want a ship," Nancy said, her voice hollow. Admiral Rodriguez looked at her with sympathy. "Lieutenant Parker, I understand your grief, but I want a ship," Nancy repeated. And this time her voice carried something that made the Admiral step back. "And I want Parker." Parker, no relation despite the shared surname, was a legend in the HDI. A tactical genius whose strategies had saved 3 colonies during the Zephan incursion. He was also known for one other thing: he never forgot, and he never forgave. When Nancy found him in the combat simulators, he was running scenarios against impossible odds. He always was. "They killed a child," Nancy said without preamble. Parker's hands stilled on the controls. He didn't turn around. "I heard. She was 8 years old. Her name was Sarah. I know. Command won't authorize retaliation. They say it would destabilize galactic politics. That one life isn't worth a war." Parker finally turned to face her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "Command is wrong. Will you help me?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Help you? Nancy, I'm going to do what humanity does best. I'm going to teach the Cretheans why you don't touch our children." They took the stealth corvette Retribution without authorization, along with 50 volunteers who had also lost someone to Crethean brutality. Command screamed threats over encrypted channels, but Nancy had already severed communications. There was no going back now. Parker's plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Cretheans believed in strength, in overwhelming force, so he would show them what human strength truly meant. The Crethean supply depot at Outpost Karis was supposed to be impregnable. 16 capital ships, automated defenses, and a garrison of 10,000 warriors. Parker infiltrated it with 12 people and a cargo hauler full of mining explosives. When the station erupted in a cascade of fire, the Crethean Empire barely had time to respond before Parker struck again and again. Each attack was precise, devastating, and accompanied by a simple message broadcast across all frequencies: "You killed Sarah Chen. You killed a human child. This is what happens next." Nancy coordinated the intelligence, tracking Crethean fleet movements, identifying targets. She worked 18-hour days, fueled by grief and rage. Every destroyed Crethean outpost, every crippled warship, brought her a cold satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The Cretheans responded with predictable fury. They sent their best fleet to hunt down the Retribution. Commander Vexither himself led the pursuit, determined to crush these insolent humans and restore his empire's dignity. He found them in the Asteria Nebula, where sensor readings were unreliable and communications scattered. The perfect trap, Parker had spent 3 weeks preparing the nebula, seeding it with thousands of autonomous minds, each programmed with targeting algorithms that made them nearly impossible to evade. When Vexither's fleet entered, they found themselves in a killing field. The Crethean dreadnoughts, so feared across the galaxy, died one by one. Their shields collapsed under concentrated fire. Their hulls ruptured in the vacuum. And through it all, Parker's voice echoed across their communications. "You wanted to demonstrate your power by killing an innocent child. Let me demonstrate ours." When the Retribution finally docked at a remote human station, Nancy and Parker were arrested immediately. They faced court-martial, potential execution for their unauthorized actions. But something unexpected happened. The Crethean Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, requested peace negotiations with humanity. Not with the Galactic Council, not with the established powers, with humanity specifically. Because Parker had done something no one else had managed in 300 years. He had made the Cretheans afraid. At the trial, Admiral Rodriguez read the charges with a stern expression. Then he looked at Nancy and Parker and did something unprecedented. He smiled. "How does humanity plead?" The judge asked. Parker stood. "Guilty of protecting our children, Your Honor, and we do it again." The court erupted in chaos, but Nancy noticed something. The gallery was packed with families, with parents, with people who understood that some lines could never be crossed. The verdict came swift, time served, with a notation that their actions, while unauthorized, had resulted in a strategic victory for humanity. As they left the courtroom, Nancy turned to Parker. "Was it worth it?" He looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "They killed a child, Nancy. They needed to learn that humans don't just grieve. We remember, we adapt, and when you threaten our children, we become the nightmare the galaxy should have always feared." The Crethean Empire never attacked another human colony. Some said it was diplomacy. Others credited the peace treaty. But Parker knew the truth. They didn't attack because they had finally learned what every predator eventually discovers. There's always something more dangerous than you. And humanity, when protecting its young, was the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Sarah Chen's name was carved into a memorial on Epsilon 7 and across the stars. It became a reminder humanity could be kind, compassionate, and peaceful until you touched their children. Then humanity became chaos itself.